maybe if you could just share with everyone who you are and yeah, kind of your background and all that.
Right. So, I'm an environmental and dietary consultant. I'm a certified bio-biologist, certified biobiology inspector, and I'm a material specialist. And I use the extremely chemically sensitive or chronically ill as the benchmark for choosing materials, for their material safety, etc. And I do that on the premise that if you accommodate the very most sensitive, then you're helping everyone. You're not hurting anyone. And these sensitive people are the canaries, and they're telling us, hey, you know what? There are some problems that we need to have our attention, given to. And they're alerting us to problems that we might have in the environment. But anyway, that's what I work with people that have been chemically injured or have chronic illness and help them to determine what might be in their environment or in their diet that is actually impeding their optimal health or hijacking their healing process, etc.
Amazing. And your name is Marilee.
Marliee Nelson. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you also co-founded Branch Basics.
Yes. Branch Basics.
Branch Basics. I use the product and I love them.
That's great. Well, tying into this subject, I call our products, they're products with a purpose because they are actually designed to replace every toxic cleaning and laundry product in your house. And so, with one fell swoop, you can remove the harmful products and replace with just 2 very safe, human-safe products. So it's
amazing. Yeah, and you guys have been going now. How long has it been?
Probably about 2 years.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. So I really wanted to bring Marilee on because I was recommended her by a friend, a good friend, and I just wanted her to bring her on and share about air filters, the importance of getting an air filter, kind of what you want to look for, what you want to avoid, and all of that. So why, Marilee, now in the world we live in, why do you think an air filter is important?
There's a lot of factors, but actually the elephant in the room is the fact that our homes, our indoor air quality today is very polluted. And in fact, the EPA states that air quality in our homes is one of the top threats to our health. They also say that the air in our homes is up to you'll look at some sites, they'll say 200, others will say 500, some even 1,000 times more polluted than the outside air. So,
wow.
Yeah, you go, oh my gosh, why would that even be? Well, it's because we have many products throughout our homes that we use on and around our bodies that have harmful chemicals. And we also have a lot of products and things in our home that generate dust. That's like carpets, upholstery, anything with fabrics, etc. Just think of looking through a window and you see the dust the dust in the air. But if you plop down on your carpet, just a whole dust cloud comes up. And that dust actually can carry allergens, mold, dust mites, viruses, bacteria, even chemicals from flame retardants in our couches or from plastics. They ride on that dust. So, therefore, you want to reduce the pollution in our homes because studies are actually linking this exponential rise in chronic illness to our exposure to harmful chemicals. And so air filters can be just a wonderful, wonderful addition to our homes because it improves our air quality.
Yeah, I know we kind of said beforehand, we were talking before we hit record, but I think a lot of times people focus on the food and the water and all of that. It has to be perfect, which I'm a huge fan of having organic food and good quality water. But I think we neglect air quality a lot. And it might be because the initial investment is a little bit more than, water filtering or buying organic. But I think we can go without food and water for a certain amount of time, but we can't really go without oxygen, or air. So I think it's something to consider, because if you're constantly breathing in that air, it can have a negative impact on your health. So what are some things someone should look for when they are searching for an air filter? What would you say should be at the top of the list?
Well, the first thing I do, since I am a material specialist, is I look at, well, what is it made of? And you really want an all metal air purifier if possible. You don't want a lot of plastic parts, because as we know, plastics, they can either be hard or soft, but whether they are hard or soft, they actually outgas into whatever they're touching. So if air is flowing through a lot of plastic parts, you're going to be picking up maybe the BPA or the phthalates that it might be passing through. So I like to have an all metal purifier. I want to look to see what is the filtration that it does. Does it remove both volatile organic compounds? That's what you smell. And does it remove particulates? So those are two things that you really want any air purifier to do, both of those. And then you're going to ask the question, how large is the carbon filter media? The carbon filter media is the media that's going to pick up the volatile organic compounds. And so the larger the capacity, the larger the carbon content, the more it's going, the more capacity to pick up chemicals, and also that impacts the life of the filter. And for instance, you're going to look and say, okay, do I have to change the filters every 6 months, every year, every 2 years, 5 years, et cetera? That's going to, in terms of the cost, you look at that.
Yeah.
So therefore, you want to, when you choose your filter, you want to choose one that has a good quality media. And typically the companies will use carbons, the coconut carbon, a bituminous carbon. They'll have zeolites. Some of the companies, they'll let you combine what you want. If you have a new house, or a house with like new cabinets, etc., you may want to get a filter that will particularly address formaldehyde. And if you do, you really want to look for an air purifier that uses a potassium iodide filtration for that formaldehyde. You want to avoid potassium permanganate, because that is actually an EPA registered pesticide. And basically in my work, I've worked with people for about 30 years. And years ago, when they just, when air purifiers were more in their genesis, I would have my sensitive people would be using air purifiers, and across the board, they were reacting to these filters that were designed to remove formaldehyde. And I did research. I found out that they were using this potassium permanganate. Today, companies are still using that. A lot of them have switched over to the potassium iodide, which is much better. So that's an important, very important factor to look for. What we just talked about was dealing with the VOCs. The next part we want to look at is the particulates that it removes. And like I said, particulates, that's the dust. That's the fine, very fine particulates that might be generated from smoke or vehicle exhaust, etc. So you want to have a really good particulate filter. You want to have a medical grade HEPA filter. HEPA means high efficiency particulate air filter, basically. And that's going to remove 97% of the dust, pollen, mold, allergens, etc. And so that's real important. And how big is the HEPA filter is a question that you can ask. You can have a small little filter, or you can have one that has, up to 60 feet in terms of the area that the HEPA filter will, cover. There's also filtration called HEGA filters. Some air purifiers have that. That is a carbon cloth filter, and it was developed by the military for chemical warfare. So, the type of filter is important, and you want to look at what is the rate of the filtration, how fast, how much air is moving through it. For instance, you might have an airflow of 50 cubic feet per meter, or another one might have 250 feet per minute. And I meant per minute earlier. And so obviously you can see that some air purifiers are going to move a lot of air through. They're going to have a bigger capacity versus a smaller one. So, you want to looking at when you're looking for it, are you going to put this, do you want this for a small room? Do you want it for a bedroom? Do you want it for a living area? And you really want to get one that can cover, the area that you need. Another thing that you might look at is how loud is the air purifier? It is recommended that we don't have higher than 70 decibels for more than 24 hours, that level. So we want lower than 70 decibels. So you want to look at that, because some air purifiers are going to have a louder noise. Most of them have adjustments that you can go, low or high, but that can be a concern for some people. Another thing you want to ask is, does your air purifier have a 3-pronged plug? So why would I say that?
Interesting.
Yes, if you have a 3-pronged plug, then that means that if you have where you're plugging in is grounded, that your unit will be grounded, and that's going to reduce the electric fields. If you just have a 2-prong plug, those are less expensive. You're going to be generating higher electric fields. And so one of the important things that I really look at is the electromagnetic field component of the air, of the air purifier. So I don't want to have a smart air purifier. That means I don't want to be able to turn my air purifier when I'm at the mall or whatever, because that means I have a high frequency field generating to and from that air purifier, and we do not want that. That's really important to people, especially if they're using it in their bedroom. I think one of the last things I guess I'd say is, where is the unit made? Is it made in the USA? Is it, are you going to be guaranteed that you're going to be able to get the parts, the filters, et cetera? Just something to consider. Yeah. So that's things you can think about when you're looking at air purifiers.
It's so good. I'm going to have to list this out for my readers because that was so helpful. Can you talk a little bit more about the zeolite as far as in the filter and what that does? Because I don't find filters.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Can you talk about the zeolite in the filter?
Yes, the zeolite is sometimes combined with carbon, and that just helps to widen the type of chemicals that are addressed in the unit. And, some people, like I mentioned, some companies you can choose different media. And some people might say they don't want zeolite because they react to it. Or that, they want to focus on coconut carbon, et cetera. But the zeolite added with the carbon just expands the array of chemicals that can be addressed.
Yeah, that's so great. And I thought it was a good point too you brought up about the smart air filters, because I've seen a lot of that come up in recent years. And that was my first thought too, was, it might be more convenient, but in the long run, it's not doing us any good. So I thought it's a really good point. Okay, all good things to consider when you're looking for an air filter. What about when you're looking for one? Like, what are some things you want to avoid? Probably is flip-flop and wave.
Right. So plastic, an all plastic unit, that I like to avoid that. I want to, I tell my clients to make sure there's no antimicrobial claims. For instance, a lot of products are impregnating these antimicrobials like Microban, et cetera, in materials. So we don't want any antimicrobial claims because that's basically having a pesticide.
Wow.
Unit, and you're spreading it around the house, your room. Going right back to no computerized parts, no smart air purifier. So that's two different things. You can have a computerized air purifier, and that means you're going to be pushing buttons. You can tell if it's computerized. And that's going to be putting out high frequency fields. I like to avoid high frequency fields. We have enough. It's, part of our pollution in our homes is the electromagnetic field pollution. And the more we can reduce that, the better. And again, especially because we're a lot of times going to be using that air filter in the bedroom, we want to have the cleanest electromagnetic field arena as possible. So a computerized computer is going to put out the high frequency fields, and then the smart air purifiers are too. They're going to be connected to Wi-Fi, et cetera. And we just don't want that. Another thing you want to ask about is you want to make sure that there's no ozone generation. And there are some air purifiers that a lot of them actually have been taken off the market, but there are still some where you can turn a switch and it will generate ozone. I don't recommend those. You need to be very careful with ozone. Ozone is a lung irritant. It can be used judiciously and well, at the right time in the right place, but I don't recommend that. I also don't recommend electronic air purifiers. The electrostatic purifiers, they will produce a small amount of ozone, and we want to avoid that. So
Yeah.
Those are a few things to avoid.
Yeah, definitely. Do you find that a lot of people, when we were working with them as far as air filters, they know exactly like what they want, or do you find most people are like misinformed?
Well, I think that just like in all arenas, like if you buy a product, non-toxic on the label is not enough. You've got to read the ingredient list.
Sure.
If you go to the store, organic on a label is not enough. You've got to read the ingredient list. And there's a lot of, I guess you could say, advertising that, companies want to say their unit does this, their unit does that. So basically we're talking about the same thing. You have to learn how to vet. You have to vet your products you use in your home, the food you eat. You have to read the labels. And when you're going to buy something like an air filter where you're trying to clean up the air, we don't want to be actually polluting the air, with the
Right.
Let me just say something really important here. No matter what air purifier you get, if it has a motor, you always want to run it maybe out on your porch or, in a room sequestered for maybe a day or so, just to let the motor outgas. The new motors, sometimes there'll be a smell generated. So I always tell people, anything you ship picks up shipping odors. They pick up odors from where they've been stored. And it just takes a little time for all of that to go away and outgas.
Yeah, no, that's a really good tip for sure. Yeah. And I will say, just as an influencer, I've been approached by multiple companies, asking if I wanted an air filter. And I actually purchased the air filter. I chose Austin Air filters because after talking to people, researching, really vetting them out, like you said, to me, they are the best. They're great. And for a lot of the reasons that you pointed out in the beginning, as far as, what to look for, is why I chose them. But I wanted to kind of hear your opinion on Austin Air filters and why you think they're unique and different.
Well, they are absolutely my number one choice too. And one of the biggest reasons is because of my history with very chemically injured people that are going to react to, they're going to react to plastic. They're going to react to antimicrobials in machines, etc. I found with the Austin Air, it being, all metal, no plastic, no antimicrobial impregnated materials. Their carbons are very good. They use a potassium iodide for the formaldehyde removal. They have no high frequency fields, no smart technology. The filter design is really great. It has a large intake and then a small export, which creates sort of a circular airflow in the room. And the people that I've had that have been very ill, they've just done so well with how the air is moved, etc. The Austin Air, it moves 250 cubic feet per minute of air. That is a lot of air. And that means that, it's going to do a really good job in a bedroom. Very good job. Now, they say that the Austin Air can go up to 1,500 square feet. That's pushing it from my opinion. I really love them for bedrooms, and then to bring them out into the, your living area. I think they're one of the biggest air purifiers with the most movement out there. So you're really getting a good amount of air purification. Another thing I love about Austin Air is they're made here in the United States, in Buffalo, New York, and every part that they use in this air purifier is from the United States. And dadgummit, I will tell you, they are so well built. I have been sharing the Austin Air with clients for many years. I think I got my first one in the 90s, early 90s, and this thing works still. The motor is just dynamite. They're very well built. Let's see, why else? I just can't say enough about them. The electric, it has a 3-prong plug. You want to make sure that you get about 3 feet away at least from your air purifier. That's to reduce exposure or eliminate exposure to the magnetic fields. Every air purifier, if you plug it in and you turn it on, it's going to have a magnetic field and an electric field. And the magnetic field extends about 3 feet away. And I just tell you a real quick story about a client of mine years ago in the 90s that bought an air purifier, an Austin Air, and she was having a really hard time, but she put the Austin Air right by her head. She was laying down, she had the air intake just going right to her, so she's getting that great clean air. But the problem was that she was actually sleeping in a high magnetic field, because when you get really close to a motor, it's pretty high. So I discovered that, and ever since I discovered that, I always make sure I tell people, keep it at least 3 feet away from you. And then at 3 feet, if you're 3 feet away, you probably have no magnetic field at all. That's about as far as it goes. So that's an important point.
Yeah, a good tip for sure. I feel like too, the one thing about the Austin is the high carbon filter that they have. It's very, very large compared to a lot of filters that I've looked into.
Very large. It's 15 pounds and it can last up to 5 years. And they have a guarantee. So for instance, I tell people, okay, 5 years is a long time. If your house is moderately, has moderate exposure to chemicals, etc., maybe it could last 5 years, but I usually tell people, maybe 3 years. If they're really polluted, 1 year. We want their house to be clean. We want to clean up the products and make the air quality as good as possible anyway. But, if it is really polluted, that's going to run out. But if it does, let's say you are in a very polluted area, maybe you've had a lot of smoke in your area or whatever, and you want to change that filter quicker. They have a guarantee, like I said, of 5 years of life. So they'll prorate the filter for you. If it only was used 1 year, then the next one you get, you'll have a really good prorate, cost on that. So.
Yeah, I love that about them. I think that's such a cool guarantee and really backs their product even more, that it's out there. Yeah. Would you say someone, I've had this question and I wasn't sure how to answer it, and I didn't find anything online, but someone asked me, how do you know when to change the filter? Say you moved into a new house and you did get the Austin filters, but they do say they last for 5 years, but maybe not as long, like you said.
It's very easy to tell. You go up to where the air is coming out and you smell it. It should smell fresh. If there's it's saturated. And I will tell you now, this is another thing. Air purifiers are fantastic. Some people will use them when they're, let's say, remodeling, and they want to use an air filter to bring down the smell. What I want to say is you can saturate a unit pretty quickly if you've got really high VOCs. And, maybe taking a sand or doing some things like opening windows, et cetera, and, filtering the air even with the outside air. When you do something like that, you can increase the life of your air purifier. But, it can happen. You could really have a contaminated area with that 5-year filter, like I'm saying, where you had to change it, fairly quickly. I think I've had that happen maybe 1 or 2 times where someone really, had to get rid of it maybe in a little less than a year.
Okay.
That's rare.
Yeah. I also, my youngest son, he was 2, and he put a quarter in like the side of an Austin Air. And so my husband had to unscrew the top to get it out. And there was, dust on the top. So we just vacuumed it out. Do you recommend doing that, or?
Sure. And in fact, one of the ways to extend the life of the Austin Air is the outside has all these little tiny holes all around, and you just get your vacuum, your HEPA vacuum, and just get your, the brush extension, and you just vacuum that maybe once a week even, or 2 weeks, and that'll really help the life of the filter. I'll just say, like, for instance, a bedroom unit, it has 5 stages of filtration. It's got a large particle pre-filter, and so that's going to be right under the metal casing. And so that, if you vacuum on the outside all around, fairly routinely, you're going to be removing particulates from that and giving that longer life. Then there's a stage 2 medium particle pre-filter. And then there is a stage 3. It's the 15 pounds of the carbon filter. And then there's a stage 4, and that's your medically certified HEPA. And then last, the stage 5 is a HEGA carbon cloth. That's the one that's the military developed purification for chemical warfare. So it's quite good.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, no, that's good. I have done the vacuum thing, and I've taken a wet or damp cloth, I should say, and wiped the outside too. I had read about that, just to kind of clean off the dust and everything.
Vacuum it first and then then clean with the wet.
Okay. Yeah, that's so good.
One more thing I want to say about the Austin Air. I talked about decibels. That's how loud is the unit. And so the Austin has adjusted, units low, medium, high. It goes from 42 to 62 decibels. So for some people, it's too loud. And what I have suggested, since it's such a great purifier, is if they want it on that high setting for some reason, they can wear earplugs. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good way to use it. But, put it down to the lower setting, a lot of people, there's not a problem. But I will just say that it is not the quietest And the reason, oh my gosh, it's moving so much air. It's doing such a great job of particulate removal. Let me just say that Austin Air has done studies with Johns Hopkins. They've done studies with children's hospitals, numerous places, independent studies. They showed that children with asthma had a marked reduction in their asthma, symptoms. And asthma is the number one chronic illness in children today.
Wow.
And also they found, people that live near freeways, there's a lot of very fine particulate dust and a lot of pollution from vehicles. And they found with using Austin Air that people that slept with that in their bedroom, their blood pressure went down. It's been shown to really help people with COPD, any kind of respiratory problem. And just in general, you're reducing all that chemical load that you're getting that can cause, asthma, cancer, neurotoxic reactions, endocrine disruption, et cetera, because you're reducing that exposure. So it's really a nice addition.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I always think of it. It reminds me of the book Dirty Genes by Dr. Ben Lynch, but he talks about how, we have a certain threshold. We have like a cup that's full. And if it gets too full, that's when things start to happen, right? Of toxins. Obviously, every day we're exposed to toxins in some form, but, what are the ways we can reduce that and really kind of mitigate some of those? And so I think an air filter is a perfect, option to do that.
It is. It's a really good option. And, our home should be our safe haven. We go out to the store, we go to school, we go to work. We don't have any control. We come home. That's where we're supposed to rejuvenate, repair, restore. And if we've got toxic products sitting all throughout our house, and if we, have a lot of dust, et cetera, we're just, hijacking our health, basically. And the removal of those products using an air purifier and just taking some simple steps is great. It's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the part about the noise with the Austin. So do you keep it at like pretty much just the lowest setting all the time? What is your recommendation?
I do. I vary. You know what? I like to get the high filtration at night. So I'll just, I'll put in earplugs. No problem.
Yeah.
But like in the day, you can, the thing about purifiers is typically they're mobile. You can move them. You don't have to have 5 or 6 in your house. You could have one in your bedroom, and then in the day you can roll it out into the, your living area. You can move it around. Certainly during the day, you'd probably put it on low. If you had a smoke coming in for some, outside or some sort of unusual pollution, obviously turn it up.
Yeah, for sure. So is the highest setting, is that too high for what you were saying before about it being?
No, under the 70 decibels was the threshold, and this is 62.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I always turn mine on high at night, like you said, and then I just turn it on low throughout the day. But we have one in our bedroom and then my kids' bedrooms in our playroom, just because I think it's important when we sleep to have that. But then we're in the playroom a lot with homeschooling and things like that. So I think it's important too, but
that's really, really good.
Yeah. What would you say maybe if someone's thinking like, okay, overall cost, because I know sometimes Austin can be a little bit higher of a price point than say other air filters, but I tell people too, in the long run, you're not having to change the air filter quite as much. A lot of them are usually 6 months to a year that I found.
That's right. It is an investment, but it is so worth it. Like I said, I have several of them, and they're old. They're many years old, and they run just like they're brand new. And so they're very durable. The company's great if you were to have a problem. And I'm trying to think if I've had people with problems. Not really, just very good service for them. So.
Yeah. I have another question. What about at night, or say in the morning, you're gonna go about your day and you had your air filter on? Do you typically recommend people like shut their door if they have an air filter? I've read different things about this, but I'm curious your opinion, to make sure you're maximizing the air in the room instead of pulling from other sources.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, definitely at night, I'd close the bedroom door just to reduce that area, just to make it more concentrated. But in the daytime, you could have it in your living room or wherever you have it. And you could open up and just kind of filter the whole system. If you've got an HVAC system, of course, you've got your air coming in from the whole house. And, I think at night, closing the door was probably a good idea.
Sure. Especially because it's that big chunk of time where you're in one place, breathing in that air over and over. So I agree. Yeah, it's been so helpful. Do you have any final parting thoughts or things that you would like people to know?
I do have a thought, and it comes along with the idea, asking about the price. Austin Air is expensive. A lot of them are expensive. And let's say someone just can't afford it. If you don't mind, I'd like to give you a really inexpensive option.
Yes, please.
This is such a great, great option. You can just get a box fan, and then you would get a Filtrete filter. That's Filtrete, size to fit your box fan. And you probably want to get a MERV 13. MERV rating on the filter tells what type of particulates does it remove. And what you do is you turn on that box fan and you just set the Filtrete filter right on the back where the air is being sucked through. So it'll just suck that filter on. You don't have to attach it. It's automatically attached. And you've got yourself air purification.
Wow.
And the Filtrete filters, they have some that actually have some carbon impregnation and the particulates. So you could get one that does both VOCs and particulates. It's really great. And people, during the fire season, when it's a very, very serious situation and people want to have a whole lot of help, this can be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. That's so great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. No, I have looked before, but I don't ever see sales on Austin Airs, really.
Yeah, I
even during holidays, I've looked before, and it's pretty rare for anything to come up. But if you know of one,
I would let you know.
Okay, yeah, same. I'll let you know.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's another sign, though, too. I tell people, you see a lot of different things posted on social media, and I'm always a little leery at first until, I look into it myself, because you just have to think about what people are sourcing their information from. And, I think there's a law behind it, but so.
Right. And I do want to say another couple of things. This is not to criticize another company, and I'm not going to say any names, but we do have to be careful of certain technologies that are coming out. They're fairly new, and they can actually generate fine particulate byproducts we're finding. These are purifiers that are generating, like I say, certain fine particulates. So if you come across a company that's selling an air purifier that's making some pretty, extreme claims, really dig into it and see how is this air purifier doing this.
Yeah, that's really good.
And this smart technology, it's becoming so popular. That's one of the first things the company's going to say, oh, and we have smart technology. Well, that is really a red flag.
Yeah.
You want your bedroom to be as clean in terms of the electromagnetic fields as possible.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. It's something too, I think people don't think about, like you said, it's not smart isn't better. It's just, it might be a new advancement, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's better for us.
We haven't learned to use it safely, totally. And that's
Yeah.
what, we need to learn to use these things in a safe way. Same with cell phones. It's better to put it on airplane mode at night when you sleep, etc.
Definitely. Yes. Well, thank you so much. This was so helpful, so rich and good. I'm so excited to share it with everyone. And I think it'll be really helpful, just coming from an expert. So thank you for your time and sharing with us.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's really been great.